Hey, Michael.
Hey,
Hi,
Joanne.
everybody. How are you?
Howdy. Oh, hold on.
I
Can you
can
hear
see
me?
you. I can hear you.
Okay, good. Good. Okie dokie. All right, let me get that out of the way. I gotta arrange my screens here. Sometimes it gets a little confusing, to tell you the truth, as to what exactly is happening at any given time with these. I've got three screens and I've got a slideshow there and stuff here, and I'm not smart enough for all that. So awesome. How's everybody doing?
Good.
Anybody?
Can everyone hear me? My name's Evan. I'm here for the.
Yes. Hi, Evan. I hear you. Hi.
Good, good, good. How are
Hey,
you?
Evan, where are you coming from?
I'm in Amityville right now.
Oh, okay. Awesome.
Yep.
Evan
Yep.
is a corporate loan officer. He's waiting for his license to come through,
Oh,
and
very
he's
cool.
training with
Okay.
me and Andy Thor.
Nice.
So I invited him to this. I think this is the first training he's attending with you, right, Evan?
Yes, I believe.
Yeah.
And do I have a video going here? I'm sorry. I was running in late.
We're just looking at a big E, bro. We just see a big E on your name.
Yeah, we don't
Okay.
see you.
Okay, hold on. I'm sorry.
That is
That's
okay.
okay. You don't need a video. A lot of people don't. I'll turn it off soon when Mike gets going, but
Okay. Well, let me.
as long as we hear you and you hear us, you're good because you'll see his screen. So,
I'm here and I'm watching. So.
all right,
Awesome.
cool.
Hey, Frenchie, how's it going, bro?
Doing great, Michael. How are you?
I can't complain. It's a beautiful day. How's the weather up there?
Well, I'm only a couple hours north of you, so it's not that bad. We had rain last night.
Yeah, we've been getting some rain. I know. I think it was supposed to be moving either across the southeast seaboard or kind of starting to head north a little bit. So hopefully you get it and it passes me.
Thanks.
Brother, I'm just looking out for your lawn.
I
I want to
understand.
make sure your grass stays well watered and everything is okay.
I understand. I understand. Hi, Gina.
Hey, how are you?
Good, thanks.
Hi, Gina.
Hi, Joanne. How are you?
I'm good, my dear.
Hey, Scott, Sidna, Crystal, Evan.
Hello.
Hey, we're a friendly bunch. So I'm setting up my screens here. I've got my chat opened. I think I've got everything where I need to have it. We're gonna go ahead and get started here pretty soon. It's right about that time. We'll give it a minute or two for the people like me who live in Caribbean time. So we got all the early birds here.
Hey, Mike, could you stay on after the call for 1 or 2 minutes?
Maybe. I charge by the minute though, so be aware.
Okay, that's good.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll try. Hey, listen, bro, if I hang up, if I end it and just turn it off because I forget, just call me.
Right.
You don't. All right. Sorry. I'm just warning myself or warning you that certainly is a possibility.
I'll remind you at the end when we're closing
Okay,
down.
cool. Absolutely. I'm gonna put my. Let's see. It should be screen 3. All right. So we should have the little screen of a little bit of, everybody can see my screen. It says Loan Officer Academy across the top.
Yes.
Yes.
Good.
You guys should take a picture of this screen.
Yeah, go ahead. You can take a picture, guys, if you don't have that information. If you go to loanofficeracademy.info, there's pretty much all that information. There's a link to the WhatsApp group. There's also some downloadables, income calculators and stuff like that. There's information on PALE, which everybody knows is my favorite topic. Everybody gets sick of me saying it, but the PALE, for those of you who don't know, it's the pre-qualification conversation. It's really where we collect the basic data in a systematic way And that pale pre-qual conversation is so important because what it does for us is it really sets up the loan. It gives us the background. It tells us what we need to have, what we need to find out. You know, it really gives us a lot of the important bits and pieces. So starting to press forward here. If everybody is okay with me moving forward, and I'm sure some folks will be joining us along the way, but that is okie dokie. So the key things that we're going to talk about are up on the screen. We're going to talk about the pre-qual process, doc request. Those were 1 and 2. That was the last 2 weeks. This week, we're going to talk about everybody's favorite topic, calculating income. This is really, really important. And it's probably the thing that we as loan officers get wrong the most. We make the most mistakes with calculating income, and it's what kills more of our deals because we miscalculated income. So this is really important, and it's a grind. It's not, it's not everybody's favorite fun, sexy topic, but it is super, super important. We'll talk about once we know what their income is, and we've seen some of the income docs, we can start moving into a pre-approval process. That'll be next week. Mach 1 is a Jet Direct product, but it's basically a loan commitment. We're going to talk about kind of transitioning from a pre-qual to a pre-approval to a loan commitment. And I think it's an exceptionally important topic to talk about. And then, the following classes are basically, once you're under contract, what happens? What do you do? Locking your rate, understanding rates is an incredibly important conversation to be able to have with your borrower. And I would tell you, you got to have that conversation early, because if you wait and you have that conversation too late, you're going to lose
the regs. Yeah. No.
Hey, Fahmi, how are you? Can you mute yourself, please? Okay, everybody.
Sure, absolutely. Sorry about that.
No, that's all right, bro. No worries. Welcome to the call. So yeah, we're going to talk about rates, and then having that conversation with your customer in a preemptive manner, right? Because if we don't have that conversation up front, and all of a sudden they start getting a little bit wonky when it comes time to move into the process, you could lose that loan for no reason or for a bad reason. So we're talking about the closing disclosures and closing costs. Business development, which of course is where we're going to find our loans, and then we'll move into some guidelines and programs. I may do, by the way, and this is kind of if everybody, you can see the curriculum that's up there. If everybody wants to drop 2 things in the chat, 1, who you work for and where you're from, because we do have some folks that are not with Jet Direct, and awesome, welcome. We're super happy to have you here. The other thing is I want to know, of these items, right now we're doing calculating income. Of what's below calculating income, what would you like to see next? Would you like to do the pre-approval? Would you like to do maybe business development, right? Because now we're kind of at the point where we get the basics of what happens. Now let's find some business. So I'd like to hear some input from that. And I will keep pressing forward here through our day. Those of you who don't know me, my name is Michael. I've been doing this for a couple of minutes, and I love sharing and helping people grow and learn. And I am a branch manager with Jet Direct Mortgage. I'm also a commercial mortgage broker as well, and so I am kind of blessed to live on both sides of the fence. And but I love helping folks. I love sharing my hard-earned knowledge. Much of what I've learned was by making a lot of mistakes. And so there's my contact information. If you want to take a picture of that, or a screenshot. If not, please feel free to reach out to me via the WhatsApp group on the website, which is loanofficeracademy.info. There's a link. You can click that link and you can get into the WhatsApp chat group. and use that for sharing scenarios and asking questions and stuff like that. So I'm going to lead with this because this is the backbone of what we do. For those of you who don't remember, PALE is, or maybe haven't been here before, PALE is our pre-qual conversation. It's where we have a conversation with our borrower about their personal and property goals and their personal background, a little bit of their personal background. We talk about their assets, in other words, their bank account, stuff like that. Talk about their income, talk about liabilities and credit. And from this PALE conversation, we can develop a pre-qual, and we can also, really important, create a proper document request, which is what we talked about last week. Well, now let's imagine, my slide moves forward. There we go. I was clicking it 3 or 4 times. So now let's imagine we've completed our pre-qual, we've sent our doc request, and they've sent us some documents. So what happens next, right? Well, as you know, income calculations start during our PALE conversation. Do they have a co-borrower? Are there any employment gaps? Are they self-employed? Is there anything wacky, commission, bonus, overtime? So PALE is where you start building your conversation log comments. It's where you find out your potential problems. By the time they start sending you docs, you should have a pretty decent idea of what you are expecting to get. And guys, there is a video on PALE for those of you who've missed the first class that we did of PALE. There's a video on the website, so feel free to go to loanofficeracademy.info and you can watch that YouTube video and kind of start to get an idea about that stuff. But I'm not going to talk a lot about PALE because I'm going to make an assumption that you're able to get that done. Okay, you're able to do a good job. So what are the things we're worried about? What are the things we're thinking about? We want to identify our potential roadblocks and our potential challenges very early because, they may make great income today. What happens if, 6 months ago, they've been out of work, for, the past year, how long do they have to be back at work after an income gap? These are we're going to start getting into some guideline stuff now as we start understanding income, but what happens if there's an income gap? And just as a very general rule, put this in your Rolodex, in your brain. These are some of the rules you should know. Sometimes you should know just where to find them, right? But here's something you should remember. If someone was out of work for 6 months or more, they have to be back at work for at least 6 months to be able to cover that gap. Now, in many cases, especially if you're talking about an FHA loan, let's imagine out of our 2-year history, there's a 6-month gap. Well, now you have to go back in their income history another 6 months. Past that 24 months, you need to go back 6 more months in order to show income for a full 24-month period. So you need to show 24 months of period of income. Plus, they need to have been back at work for at least 6 months if they were out for 6. If it was less than 6, then they just need to be back at work. If they were out for 3 months, but at the same time, you want to start identifying this, right? And you want to start asking questions. And you want to start knowing where you're going to need a letter of explanation. Now, who wants to take a stab at this? What happens if somebody transitions from a 1099 to a W-2 employee? Who wants to try to talk about that? But not all at the same time. I'm just kidding, because nobody's unmuting themselves. All right, so we're going to talk about that for a second. I just had this happen. The gentleman was in the same position, and he was actually working for the same company in the same position with the same amount of hours. Everything was essentially the same. And a little more than a year ago, they took him from 1099 into a W-2 position. So I spoke with my underwriter. I gave her the scenario. We talked about it. And she said, yeah, that should work. That should be okay. Now, here's my recommendation. the rule of thumb with weird things like that is it depends. So what do you want to do? You want to get the proper documentation. Hey, I need all your W-2s. I need all your 1099s. I need to know the exact date of the transition. In this case, what we did is we did a VOE, written verification of employment from his employer for the period when he was a 1099, and then for the period when he was a W-2, so that we had a clear understanding of the hours that he was working and how much was his compensation. And the employer was willing to do that. We already are working on a letter of explanation, but those are weird situations. So, you need to be aware of it. And I can tell you what a lot of loan officers do. They just get the W-2s, they get a couple 1099s, whatever, they get that information, and they submit that when they turn in the loan. And I guess they cross their fingers and hope. Don't do that. Have a plan. Ask for identify those potential pitfalls and challenges early. What if a person has multiple job changes? I think we talked a little bit about this yesterday, or last week rather. If they have multiple job changes, then you want to sort of look. Do they have declining income from one job to the next, or is each job an increase? Are there gaps? Is there employment gaps? What's the reason? And ask. In our society, in our culture, far too often we don't ask questions. We sort of politely give somebody their privacy, right? In normal conversation. Someone's saying, hey, I worked here, then I worked there. Oh, I got a new job, right? And you're starting to add up in your head in a social situation. You're not going to say, dude, why are you changing jobs so much? But we're not having a social conversation. So we need to ask that borrower, why are you changing jobs so often? What happened? Why did you do it? Was there, did you get more pay, better hours? What was their main reason for having changed jobs? And that, if it doesn't make sense, that can kill a loan. So it's not just about today's pay stub and today's income. It's about that past, that history. And it obviously has to continue to make sense. I actually had a loan officer who pre-approved a borrower, and that borrower got under contract and the loan got submitted, and he was reasonably experienced, and I didn't supervise what he did. Well, and then the loan got suspended for due to debt to income ratio. So the first thing I did when I found out the loan got suspended is I logged in, looked at the employment, and I saw there was whatever X for the hourly employment, and there was $900 of monthly overtime. I had a little conversation with myself, and I said, self, we probably should verify that. I went back and looked, and no big surprise, the pay stubs didn't support that much overtime. The borrower had received about $900 in the current month of overtime, or in the previous month in overtime, but not consistently. So that overtime was disallowed. The loan ended up getting adverse. So my lesson was, I'm going to encourage anybody who works with me, guys, please, if there's something, if you're not 1,000% sure on income, ask me, and let's work on it together. Let's go through it together, because that's how you learn, and that's how you don't make mistakes. Because that borrower paid for an appraisal, they paid for an inspection. The realtor wrote multiple offers and offers, and finally got an offer accepted. And then the whole thing fell apart. That really made us look pretty bad. So we don't want that to happen. The other potential pitfall is covert 1099 independent contractors. And what do I mean by that? CNAs, nurses, travel nurses, there's plumbers. There's a lot of different businesses that hire independent contractors, not W-2 employees. And I got to tell you a secret. If you haven't done a bunch of loan apps, you're going to find out a lot of people don't know that they're W-2 or 1099. They literally don't know. So you can be like, hey, are you W-2 or 1099? Yeah, I guess I'm W-2. Yeah. Okay, great. and you move on with your day, right? You know, because that was from your PALE conversation. Well, I like to ask it this way, especially if they're in what could be a, you know, risky position. They're a plumber for a small plumbing company. They're a travel nurse or a CNA or something like that. I'm going to say, does your employer take taxes out of your paycheck, or, you know, or do you just receive a set amount of the whole amount based on how much you worked that week or that month? And even if they say, you know, oh yeah, no, they take taxes out, I'm still, when I get their documents, that's the first thing I'm checking, because I don't trust people, unfortunately, with this stuff like that. They mess it up sometimes. So, all right, so you need to identify these potential pitfalls and know, what do I have to look for? All right, so now let's talk about some of our income documents that we need. What do we need? We need pay stubs, right? Covering a 30-day period. We need all their W-2s and 1099s for a 2-year period, 2 years of tax returns, pension and social security letter. When do we need more than the current year-to-date pay stubs? Year-end pay stubs would be if they have commission, bonus, or overtime. Okay, so we need pay stubs covering a 30-day period, pretty much no matter what. But if they have commission, bonus, or overtime income, we need the 2 previous year-to-date pay stubs. Those pay stubs that show most of the year, usually from the end of December, show most of the year of the bonus or the overtime or the commission that they received. And we're going to use that to calculate how much overtime, bonus, or commission they have. If they're self-employed, you got to get the proper tax returns, and you got to get all the pages and all the schedules. If they receive alimony or child support, now compliance, we don't say, hey, Mrs. Smith or Miss Smith, do you receive alimony or child support? No, but we're going to ask, do you have any other income you'd like to use? Well, I get child support. Can I use that? Well, there's a couple rules. If they receive child support and it's court ordered, if it's court ordered child support, then we can get 12 months verification that they've received it, 12 months of evidence. And that would be bank statements or something along those lines showing the child support being deposited. And generally, you're going to want that child support to be pretty much the same amount that was on the court order, or else things start getting a little bit shaky, right? If it's not court ordered, you need 12 months of evidence in order to use it. So if that person says, your borrower says, yeah, I do receive child support. Awesome. How much do you receive? Oh, I receive $600. Okay. Do you receive that every single month? Yes, I do. How does your ex-husband or whomever the person paying child support is, how do they pay it? Oh, they sell it to me. Oh, they give me cash. Oh, it depends. If it's any of those answers, your alarm bells should start going off. And I would try to get all the appropriate documentation before adding that income into your qualification. Listen, it's always better if we can add more income in after the fact. But if you qualify for someone for a $600,000 house and then find out all of a sudden there's $1,000 of income you can't use, and now they can only qualify for, you know, 500,000 or whatever, that creates a problem. Okay. And remember, you need a letter of explanation if there's gaps or more than 2 job changes, and watch for declining income. Letter of explanation doesn't need to be fancy. It can be quite simple. Sorry. Wow. Someone said I have a Ring doorbell and it beeps through on my cell phone even when I'm at the office. So sorry about that. It was very dramatic. And I have a new phone and I don't know how to make it be quiet. All right, I think I did it. Okay. So if there's something weird, if there's anything unusual, at least get a simple letter of explanation and say, you know, I just want to, it's really to help you understand the situation better. You know, what happened? How did that work? Why did you change jobs, or whatever it was? Ask those questions. Okay. Now, how do we calculate income? There are some forms to calculate income. Okay. There's an income calculation worksheet, and most of these are on the website, on the loanofficeracademy.info website. There's a income calculation worksheet. We're going to look at one in just a minute. There's 1037 for rental income. So if they own rental properties, if they have business rental income, or if they're self-employed, you're going to do a self-employed income calculator, and you're also going to do a P&L calculator. So be aware, those are things that we're gonna look at. This is a simple screenshot of the income calculator that I generally use. And if you look over here, if they're hourly, there's salary, there's commission and bonus down below. I'm gonna show you a live one and we're gonna fill it out together a little bit. But the hourly rate, how many hours, that's gonna be their kind of their baseline. Year to date, how many months, and we're gonna fill this out. What we're doing here is we're looking for something inconsistent. So what I mean by inconsistent is we're looking if there's anything wacky in their income that would actually cause some of that income to not be usable. So I don't know where it snapped it to the wrong screen. Hold on. It's a problem with too many screens. Okay, here we go. Can everybody see my spreadsheet? Somebody?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, perfect. All right, move this screen over a little bit. Okay, so we're gonna look at an actual scenario. Fortunately on this, his social security numbers are redacted, but this is a borrower that I just got just today. They came in. So his salary is $35 an hour. And you can see here, it says 80 hours, but obviously that's 40 hours a week, right? So we're gonna come over here. We're just gonna move that out of the way for a second. So we're gonna go, we know $35, we got 40 hours. So that's his, you see this little number that just populated in here? That's his baseline, right? Now, I'm gonna come back to his pay stub. And we're gonna open that back up and I'm gonna look at his year-to-date amount. So it's 33,600, 3360 is his year-to-date income. So now I'm gonna go right here, year-to-date earnings, 33,600. Now, how many months do I put? Anybody have any idea? Who knows how to read this thing? I need some help.
It'd be 5 months because it's the middle of June, right?
Yeah, you can put 5.5, right? So look, every pay stub, almost every pay stub is gonna have 3 dates on it. It's gonna have the beginning date, which is right here, the end date, and the check date. The check date or the pay date, it don't matter. That the check date doesn't matter because it could be 2 weeks after the period. The period is what matters, right? Your pay period, end date. So in this case, it's 6/17. So if it's 6/17, I wouldn't use 5 months. I'd probably use 5.5. Does everybody understand that? 5.5 months, right? Because this is 5.5 months have gone by. Okay, so I'm going to go here and I'm going to just plug this in, number of months, 5.5. I don't know why it's got that little pop-up tab in there, but okay, look at this. So this is telling me my year-to-date income is $6,100. So that supports my current pay. You follow? All I'm looking for is, does my history support my current pay? So here's 2021, and he's in the same job. He's been in the same job for 20 plus years. Okay, so year to date for, or the 2021 year was 75,600, and we know he was there for 6 months. So I'm going to put 75,600, and I'm going to put 12 months here, 6,300. And then obviously I'm going to look for 2020 really quick. And I'm looking past my screen here to see my, all right, oops, 2021 again, right? Okay, so I need 2020. All right, here's 2020. So $71,800. And again, he was there for 12 months. So 71,800. And that was also 12 months. So I would tell you right here, this is what I'm looking at. Does the year-to-date pay stub and does my 2 previous years, does that support my current income? Absolutely. I'm comfortable saying this dude makes $6,066 a month. If it was something like this, what if his year-to-date was like that? All right. If it was $2,700 year to date, I got to ask some questions. What happened? Did you change jobs? Did you take a leave of absence? Were you sick? Is there a different set of pay stubs? Because it happens sometimes, for example, nurses. I don't know if anybody's ever worked with nurses who work like Advent Health System, hospital system. They do wacky crap with their pay stubs. I did a loan for a borrower who was a unit nurse. She was a unit manager, but sometimes when they needed her to fill in on other units as just a regular nurse, she would, of course, for extra hours. Her unit nurse, she got one pay stub. Anytime she did anything else as a standard nurse, they literally issued her a different set of pay stubs. So when I first got her pay stubs, I had the regular pay stubs, not the unit manager pay stubs, and it just didn't make sense. It was very confusing until I had to pair up both sets of pay stubs. So this is going to tell you, because, oh, by the way, your underwriter is going to make these calculations. And if these numbers don't match up, the underwriter is going to do one of two things. They're going to either condition for some more information. They're going to say, what the heck? Or they're going to suspend your loan for income, right? So we want to make sure these numbers all match up. Now you come down here, you can see, you can do the same thing with salary, do the same thing with bonus and overtime. So if a person makes X and you fill in the number of months, so the 2 years, bonus, overtime, year to date, and then it's going to tell you what you should use. So overtime and bonus is calculated the same, commission essentially counts the same, except some people who work commission do, they actually are able to expense off of their commissions. So you want to pay attention to that. Now, if they're 1099, that you're not using this because a 1099 is self-employed. But for a commission employee, you're going to do that. Any other income. So I'll give you an example. I live in Orlando, and there's a lot of people who work in the timeshare industry in Orlando. And in timeshare, they get commission income, they get bonus income, and sometimes they get other bonuses, like they might get a year bonus, an annual bonus. They might get performance awards and things like that have different names. So, I like to kind of break it all out. Okay. So, and then of course, down here, you're going to get into the non-taxable income, Social Security income, stuff like that, which sometimes can be grossed up. And we're not going to unroll a can of worms yet, but those are things to be aware of, right? So that's income in a nutshell. I went through it fast and furious, and I know that. But does anybody have any questions at all?
Can you talk about truck drivers and getting paid by the mile?
Sure. It's actually fairly similar. When you're going to do it almost like an overtime or a bonus employee, right? You can almost calculate it the same way. You've got to get their 2 previous years year-end pay stub, or again, oh, by the way, and that's a great question. Truck drivers are sometimes what I would, they're that covert 1099, aren't they? A lot of them are 1099. So now we got to get their whole tax returns and go down that path. But what if they're not 1099? Do they own the truck? Are they an owner operator? Now they're self-employed, right? So then it's tax returns if it's 1099 or if they're an owner operator. But if they are a W-2 truck driver, then here's what you're looking at. You're looking at the miles. So it's not, they don't get paid by the hour. They get paid by the mile. They get paid by the mile, and then there's a rate of pay for their miles. So now you're going to say, okay, they drove X number of miles year to date. Here's their pay date. They got paid last year, the year before, X number of miles. I'm going to average those two, and I'm going to use kind of this year to date and the 2-year average, of their miles by their mile rate. Does that make sense? Okay, Frenchie asked in the group, Uber and Lyft drivers. Uber and Lyft drivers are 1099s. So it's easy enough. We're just looking at their 1099s. We're looking at their tax returns. Most of the time, most of you are probably too young to remember Lost in Space, but that robot that would go, Danger, Will Robinson. Well, listen, Danger, Will Robinson, if they're an Uber driver or a Lyft driver, chances are they're going to write off the vast majority of their income, right? That's the challenge with 1099 employees. realtors, right? Maybe they earned $100,000 of commission this year, but, they write off MLS, they write off, the internet, the rental, they're renting space from themselves for their home office. They're writing off miles that they've driven. They're writing off all these different expenses, and that $100,000 turns into $40,000 pretty quick. And that's their usable income. So if somebody is a 1099 or self-employed, as you might remember from a few slides back, you got to have their tax returns, 2 years of tax returns, in order to figure this out. And then you got to ask them, does your current year come pretty close to what you've earned in the past? In other words, are you having a decent year? Because we're going to do a P&L. We're maybe going to, the underwriter often will look at a couple of bank statements, and she's going to match that up, or he's going to match that up with the P&L and say, does this generally make sense, right? If their bank statement shows no deposits for the last, 2 months for their business, but in the P&L, they're claiming they made all this income, again, that's going to be a red flag. So the key for us doing our job is we have to ask the tough questions. We have to dig a little bit into their scenario, and you got to dig in and ask those questions. So there was truck drivers and Uber drivers and Lyft drivers. Any other questions?
Michael,
Yes.
it's Joanne. Could we review with the group how to determine if on a salaried borrower, if they're paid bi-monthly, bi-weekly? Just show them maybe the dates and how to determine teachers, if they're 10-month, 12-month pay.
Yeah, and here's the cool thing, and absolutely, here's the best thing. If they're hourly, it doesn't really matter how frequently they're paid, if that makes sense, right? Because we're going to look at their year-to-date earnings, and we're going to look at their previous years. We're going to look at hours, and if the thing says 80 hours, I'm going to say 40, right? On here, I'm just going to use 40 hours because this is set up for that. But I'm trying to scroll down to the salary. But if they get paid, I don't know why that keeps moving because I keep clicking it. If they get paid bi-weekly, so bi-weekly is those pay periods that are going to be a little more, they're going to be more variable, right? If it's semi-monthly, it's usually something like the 1st and the 15th. But if it looks like they're getting paid over a 2-week period, if it's, Sunday through Saturday of the following week, when you look at the dates, and I don't have a system. I pop open a calendar when I get their pay stubs and I look at the dates if they're salary. Let's look at the dates. What's the pay period? How does it line up? If it's a 2-week pay period, then if it's a 2-week pay period, they're getting paid semi-monthly. I'm sorry, bi-weekly. If it's a 1st and 15th or something along, close to that. And remember, if the 1st or the 15th falls on the weekend, then it depends on their employer. They're probably going to get paid the Friday before or the Monday after. Just so, again, depending on how it falls, right? So then they would be semi. So it's going to be one of those two things, how they get paid. Of course, weekly is obvious, right? They get paid every Friday or something like that, or sometimes every Thursday, depending on the employer. But Joanne, do you have a different system for figuring that out other than I just line it up with a calendar?
Well, you can tell by the dates, like you said, the 1st and the 15th, you could tell they only get 24 pay periods. So it makes a big difference if you miscalculate that. If you think that they're bi-weekly and they're not, they're missing 2 paychecks. So like you said, the 1st and the 15th is usually semi-monthly, and bi-weekly, you could just know by the dates. It's every 14 days they're getting a check as the pay date and not the check date. So it just makes a big difference. Teachers, again, sometimes they're paid monthly, but they're paid 10 months out of the year and not 12 months. So when you enter your pay period amounts, just be certain if it's biweekly, or semi-monthly. It can make or break a deal.
Teachers are probably the only other. There are seasonal employees though. So ask, and you may know if it's in your area, right? If they're a seasonal employee, You know, and it does happen here in some of the hospitality people. They're, you know, they may be, you know, they may work for one of the attractions, and they make, you know, 2/3 of their income in the summertime, you know, when the most of the tourists are here in Orlando. So it's just, you know, you sort of have to look at those variables. And, you know, if the year to date doesn't make sense, and that's a case where it could, right? If it's March and this person, you know, works in an industry where most of their income is in the summertime, for example, you know, what do we do? That's where you're going to look at the 2 previous years. You're going to get a letter of explanation, and you're going to have a conversation with the underwriter. And you may have to show, to give you an example, right? As we build our case, you may have to show, look, in the previous 2 years, in March, their income was the same, you know, as it is currently. It's a ballpark about the same. You know, it was this lower income. But as you can see in September, the 2 previous years, they had earned most of their income in the summer. So they have a track record of having done that. And you know, the underwriter is going to be a lot more likely to say, okay, that makes sense. And that's all that, you know, our job is to make sure that we're not writing a loan that's going to get adverse for a stupid reason. You know, you have to protect your borrower. You have to protect your realtor. You know, you want to protect their time. So, okay, Christina had a question. Income would be a problem. So yeah, if she's receiving like a structured settlement from his life insurance, that's what that sounds like, Christina. She said, I don't know if everybody can see that in the chat. Friend of mine just called right before this call, wanting to know if her form of income would be a problem. Her husband passed away several years ago. He left her money through life insurance trust type of account where she gets the money monthly. That would be a structured settlement most likely, but because many times that life insurance pays out like an annuity. So the question would be, how long is it going to continue? If that income is going to continue, and I believe on a structured settlement or a life insurance annuity, it has to be continuing for at least 3 years. Is that, Joanne, do you happen to know off the top of your head? I believe it's 3, have to continue for at least 3 years.
So every type of income, even child support, would have to be proof that it's going to continue at least 3 years.
At least 3 years. So,
Mhm.
yeah, so if it's a structured settlement, so then your question for her, Christina, is how long is this going to continue? You know, and then of course, yes. So child support, alimony, and you can find those things out in the divorce decree or in the child support court order. You know, to what age and how old are the kids? If the kids are 17 years old and it's going to continue till the kids are 18, you can't use that income. Okay, so if it's not employment income, it's going to have to be able to be something that's going to continue for at least 3 years. And you're going to have to be able to show that it continues for at least 3 years. So Christina, does that answer your question?
That's perfect. Thank you.
Christina?
Yeah.
Does that answer your question, honey? So as long as you can show it's going to continue for 3 years, yes, she can use that income. Okay, awesome. Who else has questions? That was a good question. Thank you. Any other questions? Going once? No, I can't hear you. Were you?
No, Michael, I'm sorry. I have a question about the
Evan?
court ordered child support. You said 12 months, and she might have just asked this. So you have 12 months. What if it's not court ordered? That's 3 years to
No.
continue.
No, so they all have to be continuing for 3 years. It's how long do you have to prove that they've received it? And here's why, because a lot of times you can have court ordered child support and people don't pay it. You know, I mean, someone might not be paying it. So if it's court ordered, it has to be 6 months of evidence that it's been received. If it's not court ordered, it has to be 12 months of evidence that it's being received. And it should be a you know, like about the same amount every time. You know, it doesn't have to be to the penny, but you know, if 1 month, if it's $500 and 1 month he's paying 300, 1 month he's paying 250, you know, whatever, then that starts to get a little bit wonky. In my experience, underwriters are often going to try to help you figure that out. I just had a deal not long ago where the court order was, let's say it was 500, I don't remember, but the court order was 500. The kids were young. It was going to be continuing for several more years, so certainly met the 3-year requirement. He had been paying it for more than a year, but it was $500, and it's like he would pay 300, then 200, 2 weeks later, and like that. It was all broken up. And when we started looking at it, so initially my first thought was, crap, I can't use this. I probably can't use this child support, but we needed it. So I went back to an underwriter and I said, okay, help me out here. Can you take a peek with me? And she actually looked at it. And when we really broke it down, most months he was paying more than 500, just the way he was doing it. He was paying, 600, the least he had paid was like 550. So, she said, absolutely, we can use $500 of child support, even though it was all over the map. But in something like that, you're probably going to want to write a letter of explanation and figure it out beforehand, and and say, so stuff, weird things like that. I might even put it on a spreadsheet and say, June was paid this day, this day, this day, this amount, this amount, this amount, for a total of that. July, this much, this. Guys, you can literally do that. You can literally make a spreadsheet. You can show them. I had an employee, it was a conventional loan. She had a handful of different jobs, and all part-time. So she worked, 16 hours a week. Give or take, it was averaged out to about that. But when you really looked at it, like the underwriter said, I feel like there's gaps here. I don't understand. I made a color-coded spreadsheet. Literally, I made a color-coded spreadsheet with, okay, here's this employment and the start date and the end date. And I showed that everything overlapped and there were actually no gaps. And it was all comparable hours in different positions. And it worked. And it worked, the underwriter didn't, the underwriter was very close to getting denied. But it just took a little extra work and we got the loan through. So if you can make it make sense, you can get the loan through. What other questions? Evan, did that answer your question?
Yes, it did. It did. Thank you very much. Spreadsheets.
That's not the takeaway, but yeah, three years continuing on anything outside of employment income, whether it's an annuity or a structured settlement, an insurance, someone's in a car accident, they're getting a structured settlement or something like that. If it's going to continue for at least 3 years, then most likely that's usable income.
Understood. Thank you.
Yep. Anything else? Anybody else? Anybody else? Going. Guys, I appreciate your time as always. It's an honor to, to be able to chat with you and share a little bit of information.
Mike,
Yes, ma'am.
Michael. Hi, sorry to interrupt you so late. Real brief, could we just do union workers real quick? Because that's a big one. Someone who works in a union, the letter of good standing and all that good stuff.
Yeah, so it's, and it's funny because I don't get a lot of union workers in Florida and Georgia.
Oh, okay.
But so I haven't had to deal with it a whole lot, but the compensation for union workers is, one of the things, if they work at the union hall, they may be on almost like a contractor, right? They may work at different locations and different positions. And so, the documentation process is a little bit different, and Joanne's going to talk about it because she's in New York.
Yeah, well, I just want to just briefly, we're gonna, a union worker, they can work several jobs each year, and you're gonna have to average their W-2s for 2 years. And then say this current year in 2022, if they've worked several jobs, you're gonna need the ending paychecks for each job. But what you would do when you complete your application is put the current job that they're working on now and the union as their employment and how many years they're in. We will require a letter of good standing from the union and then a VOE on their current job. But again, we're going to average their last 2 years W-2s for all their jobs. And we're going to look at their year dates as well and average that in to make sure that their income is consistent over the years and there's no gaps. If they're
similar to a travel nurse or like
Correct.
a contract CNA or something like that.
Correct.
Where it's actually almost identical to that.
Right.
I don't have a lot of union.
Yeah, we have a lot of union workers up here in New York, so that's why I wanted to cover some of the people on this call are
Absolutely.
New York and probably will be dealing with unions, so I just want to make sure they're clear with that.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that.
No, thank
contribution.
you.
Does
I
anybody want
appreciate
to
it.
throw anything else out there? Any other questions, thoughts, ideas, concerns? So upcoming events for anybody who is blessed to live in paradise.
Mhm.
Here in Central Florida, just to give you a quick heads up, we do have the next happy hour. So we're modifying, I do a monthly happy hour, and we usually literally just do a happy hour. And there's nothing else. This time we're going to call it Drink and Learn. You know, we do lunch and learns. This time it's going to be a drink and learn. And I actually have two of the leading real estate investors in Central Florida will be joining us, and kind of sharing some of their tricks and tips. So funny thing is, these guys are kind of rivals, but they both, I work with both of them and I'm friendly with both of them. So, we'll see. As long as we have a little bit of a couple of drinks, they probably won't get into a fight. So it'll be good. But that's going to be next month, July 26th in Orlando, in Dr. Phillips. So any questions, thoughts, concerns, saved comments?
I just wanted to ask you if this is a weekly Wednesday class that you're doing. Is this going to be every week at this time?
We do it pretty much every week.
Okay.
At 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And it's the same Zoom link. The Zoom link doesn't change. So it's the same Zoom link. So if you want to save that link, you should be able to come in at 5 o'clock and be here. We have Loan Officer Academy, loanofficeracademy.info. There's a little bit more information. And as I mentioned, the downloadables are on there as well. It's open. There's no login. There's no requirement to do anything in order to have access to that information. I would encourage you on that loanofficeracademy.info, there is a link in the middle column about halfway down for the WhatsApp group. If you're not familiar with WhatsApp, WhatsApp is just a chat. It's a secure chat feature. And we have kind of a fair amount of us in the chat group. And it's open. If you've got a scenario question, if you've got a question and you don't know what to do or where to find information, you can hit it up in the WhatsApp group, and we can all help each other. We can all find out answers, figure out ideas for each other, strategize. I drop occasional stuff in there as well, just little tidbits and information and things like that. So I encourage you to join. There is, as always, no obligation. We do have some folks who are with companies other than Jet Direct. I am not, this is welcome to the world, okay? I'm happy to have everybody who is, even if they're not with us, I'm happy to have them participating and enjoying enjoying the opportunity to learn a little bit. And I'm a big fan of, I recorded this time, by the way, yay me. And I'm working on, what I'll do is I'll probably see if I can figure out a way to drop that video onto the website as well. Okay. So any other questions, comments, concerns? Okay. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank
you're
you.
very welcome. Thank you so much, guys. Take care. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Frenchie, I'm going to stay so we can talk if you had a question for me.